Hello, hi. Okay, live. It's okay. Right. Hello, hi everybody. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar. Well, my name is Hannah Otu, and I'm going to be the host for this afternoon's webinar. I'm the founder of SEM Parenting and Rio Paddock School in Ghana. I would first like to welcome everybody, and initially would like to say a very big thank you to the CEO of GUBA Enterprise and GUBA Foundation, Mrs. Denta Amwateng MBE, and her GUBA Foundation team for organizing this very important event with the title, Living with Autism During COVID-19. So as a parent myself with a severely autistic special needs boy, I know how difficult it is for parents and families, even without the COVID-19 lockdown. It's so difficult for families handling their children with autism and special needs. So what about this period, the COVID-19, when we have a lockdown? Because of these difficulties that so many parents are facing, we decided to organize this webinar and then get parents to bring their views, talk about all the problems and difficulties they are facing, and then we'll try to support and answer them. So the way the webinar is going to go is that the audience could put in questions either through Facebook or YouTube Live, and the questions will be popped up on screen. And when it's popped up on screen, we will discuss it among my fabulous panelists that I'm going to introduce in a minute. So in the meantime, whilst I start to introduce my panelists, I would call in all the audience to start putting in their questions. Any question, any difficulties that you've been facing, any suggestions that you think has helped you during this lockdown with your child. Okay, so let me introduce the panelists or the panel members of this webinar. The first person I'm going to introduce is my co-host, Mr. George Amiel. He's head of PR and marketing of GUBA Enterprise. And George is such an amazing friend of mine. And the good thing is that we're both parents. He is also a parent of a young lady, a teenager who has autism and is on the spectrum, so he has lots of experience. Next on the panel is Mrs. Pauline Riley Hunt. Pauline is a consultant clinical psychologist, and Pauline has so many years working with the NHS in London. She is specialist in neurodevelopmental conditions, including autism spectrum disorders, learning difficulties, and to name it a lot. Pauline is a mother of 5, and she also has a son who has autism, a 25-year-old son. So she has lots of experience as well to share. Next on the panel is Nanekwia Owusu. Nanekwia is a speech and language therapist based in Ghana. She is UK trained, and she has lots of experience in setting up lots of businesses in Ghana, training systems in Ghana, in trying to create awareness with speech and communication difficulties. And she has her own speech and language communication center called Awawa 2. And Nana is currently involved with the development of the speech and language profession with the University of Ghana. So thank you very much, Nana. She has a lot of experience to help you with communication and speech difficulties. The next on the panel is Angela Ejewa Fojo. Angela is an early years educator and lead at the Haringey Children's Center. Angela is also a parent. She has a 5-year-old son with autism. So with her experience with working with children in early years and having her own son, I think she can also bring a lot on the board. And then finally, the last one is a parent herself, Na. Na is a parent and she is based in Ghana. Na has 3 boys. And out of the 3 boys, she's got one of her sons, a 10-year-old, who is got autism. So he has a diagnosis of autistic spectrum disorder. So I'm really happy to have a very good panel members here to start off. I think to start off with everything, we would first like to have a quick 2-minute chat with our parents, Angela and Na, on the platform, just to tell us. We start first with Angie. What has been the difficulties with you and your child during this COVID-19? And let's see how the panel can start off with you, and then we'll follow on to Na. And then after that, we go on to the public. So,
okay.
Angie.
I think sorry, let me just reduce the volume. I think what's the most difficult is that losing the structure of going into school, and a lot like that has completely gone. So I would now have to act as a teacher, although I'm a childcare professional. I have to now adapt that to my home. So it's been tricky. It's not been easy because with him, he wants to play with me where he's not understanding that actually we need to do some sort of put some sort of routine in there, put some sort of learning in your day rather than you just bounce off the walls. That's been one of my biggest tricks, difficulties. However, I have managed to set some activities out for him that I know that he likes, and I know that the teachers have given me feedback on. So I've been able to adapt that in my home and recreate that at home. So it's given him a bit of familiarity of school life.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
fantastic. So at least you have experience being a professional yourself and working, so you are able to set up something at home. Yeah.
That's
so
right.
Let's come to Na, who is a parent and having 3 boys and having 10-year-old with autism. Tell us a little bit now about your son in 2 minutes and how you are having difficulties within this COVID-19 lockdown. Hello. Okay. I think we're having some difficulties with nice. Hello, now can you hear me? Okay. All right. So let's switch on. We'll come back to now. I think Angela has spoken about what some of the difficulties that she's having. We'll come back to now later if you're able to fix her microphone. All right. So we'll now open the webinar to the public. I think we are here now with the little experience that we have to be able to support some of you in terms of the difficulties you're having in the lockdown. Now, are you back? Okay. So let's open the floor now for the public with their questions. If we can have the first question, if it's out at the moment. What problems are families going through within this COVID-19 lockdown? All right. Thank you very much. So we have a first question here from our chief. It says, greetings from Bright Stars Autism Youth Club. Okay. Is there any issues that you are having with your child or adult with autism during this COVID-19 lockdown?
Probably before questions come in, I am also a parent of a 13-year-old autistic child and head of PR for GUBA Enterprise. And like Honorable Host rightly said, this is something that GUBA found it very, very necessary to share with the world, because it's a world, the autism world is a very special world, and most people don't understand it. So we, as experts, as parents who are involved in this amazing world of theirs, we think today is a very good opportunity to share what we can with you and listen to some of your stories, some of your challenges, where we have Hannah, we have Nanekia, and we also have Pauline, and maybe Angie and Na, who also help in trying to deal with some of these behaviors that these amazing children are showing at home. Because a child knows the school and knows home. But now she's home or he's home trying to behave like someone at school. So you are all welcome to a very amazing forum, and we encourage you to get involved, ask questions, and tell us your stories.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, George, for leading with your story as well. So I think in particular, we are seeing quite a lot of parents having challenging situations during this COVID-19 period. The reason being that most of our autistic children have had a break in their normal routine of attending school. And what most families face is that they don't have the training necessary or the environment that their children should be able to thrive and learn in. So this is where we see that most behaviors are picking up. So we are very happy now to be able to listen to your problems and your issues and maybe signpost you to any other organizations that could help. At the moment in the UK, we have set up the organization SEM Parenting, which is an organization that trains parents to develop their children within the home environment. So this is a very good time for families to be able to pick up what they could learn, find ways to develop their children, learn how to nurture them, learn a bit of communication and a bit of strategies to be able to develop them and then bridge the gap between school and home. Okay, so we're still waiting for the questions. If there's any questions that could be popped up, we'll be very happy. Okay.
I think
right.
Probably. Oh, okay.
I do have a question on there. So the first question here is saying from a parent, which is saying, how do you put a structure in place for an 8-year-old? So I throw this to anyone on the panel. How do you put a structure in place for an 8-year-old?
Structure.
Anekia, would you be able to help, please? If the speech and language therapist, how do we put a structure?
A structure is, if you take a routine, something that you do routinely is a structure. So if you want to put a structure in place, you really have to start, you have to decide what it is that you want your child to do, when you want your child to do it, and how you want the child to do it. And so you need to think about all these different things, components, and then sit and decide how your child communicates. You also must know how your child communicates. And so how you're going to present it. Is it a child who can talk? Is it a child who cannot talk? Is it a child who's what's the level of understanding for that child? So all those things need to be considered. And then you sit down and put something down on paper as to how you intend the structure to be. So, for example, you are thinking of how to put a structure in place for the child during the daytime. Let's say now they are at home, and you need to know, you need to decide what the child is doing in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. So let's take just the morning time. You can have a structured, like a timetable, a structured timetable, a pictorial timetable, where you decide in the morning you wake up, then it's brushing teeth time, and then it's bathing time, and then it's meals time, and all these things should be structured, should be written or stated clearly, either in pictures as well as maybe in writing as well, maybe single words, so bath time or phrases. So you have that kind of structure. And if you have it in pictures, you can paste it somewhere in your house where you and your child in the morning, when it is Cleaning teeth time, you go pull.
Okay. So I think just to continue quickly sorry? Hello, now are you there?
A picture of, and then
I think we are having a bit of difficulties with the communication. Yeah. So as Nas said, it's very important to have a structure, a timetable. It could either be in a form of visual timetables like that, where you have breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or brushing teeth, bathroom routine, and then having breakfast, and then having lunch, and having dinner, and going out. So it's good to show it in pictures, have the activity of the day done in a structure. Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. It's from a second voice CIC. It says, how can we outreach to the African community when it comes to autism or any other hidden disability? How can we reach to the African community? Is Pauline able to help? How can we reach to the African community? I think I will start off with this. Hello, Pauline, are you able to help with this, please? Thank you.
Hello. Okay. It's a broad question, isn't it? How can we outreach to the African community? I think the question is really about understanding how do we tap into the existing systems that are in place in terms of looking after children with a wide range of difficulties and challenges. So those questions are on several levels. They're on the level of the clinicians, they're on the level of academics, and then there's the level of the policy makers and the government. So it's going to mean everyone coming to the table to look at how great the needs are in terms of special needs, but particularly in terms of autism spectrum disorders. The issue that we tend to have within the African and Caribbean communities in particular is that there is often misinformation, or there is a fear that generates stigma, and out of that stigma becomes discrimination as well. Levels. It's the budget for autism, even in places like the UK, is always less than what it needs to be. So clearly in other countries, that's even going to be smaller. Sometimes, as Hannah, you know, and we all know, sometimes we attend meetings and conferences, and there were a lot of ministers there who have a lot to say about how they're going to support the services. And then sadly after, that doesn't translate into action and policy. So it really has to come from above, whilst at the same time coming from the parents, because the parents are the greatest advocates. And I think one thing parents should never forget is that we vote. We have voting rights. And sometimes it's going to have to be a lobbying at that level as well.
Okay. So that's fantastic. I think that is true. It has to come from the top, but then we need parents to break down the cultural barriers, to break down stigmas, so that we are able to come together and support each other. So there's more work needed to be done. All right, I have the next question here. Thank you very much. It comes from Somalia Bansi. He says, or she, I have a 6-year-old son with ASD. He is nonverbal. My problem is meeting the cost of his schooling. He has been at home since the academic year. We pulled him out of the public school to give him home training, as I can't meet the cost of the special school. Okay, so his or her problem, is that how can they meet the cost of schooling their child? how can they meet the cost of schooling their child? It depends on which country, I think, you're coming from. Different countries, some provide, especially in the European countries, they fund education for children either they are special needs or they are in the mainstream school. But in some countries like Africa and other poorer countries, most of the time parents fund the cost themselves. And that is very difficult situation for parents to handle on top of other things. So I don't know if anyone on the panel has anything to add on to that.
I think you've said it all.
Okay, so
it's very different per country. So you said it all.
Exactly. So try and find out what the country provides, and then we can kind of lobby and see what can be done more to support parents and families with special needs. I think at the moment there's another question up here from Sabrina Akosia Sewa. She says, what activities would you suggest doing with your child with autism during the lockdown at home? Okay, so is it something that Angie could help? What activities do you think parents can do with their child during the lockdown?
I think first and foremost, you need to find out what their interest is in, and then you build upon that. However, you can also do a lot of people game with them, so you don't require resources for that. So you could do a lot of there's a activity called like mirroring, where you would just mimic what they're doing if they're non-verbal. But if they are verbal or they're non-verbal, it doesn't matter. Just find out what they like doing, and you can just set up a range of things. There's loads of, like, the internet is at your disposal. You can go on Pinterest and find different things. So for instance, my son is very sensory, so I will do a lot of like emptying and filling with rice or lentils, or I'll do a lot of like water play or soapy foam, things like that. Just find out what they like, what their schema is. Also, my son, he likes to jump, so I'll probably do a lot of activities where he's engaging in that activity, like in that motion. Yeah, I'll say like things like Pinterest are really, you can just quickly type in anything. It's a broad range. You can do junk modeling, painting, all sorts of things.
All sorts of things that can be done.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So also it depends on what your child likes. You can also get activities that they like to do. If they don't like puzzles, you can give them puzzles, you can give them Play-Doh or whatever for them to use. Yeah. Pauline, do you have anything to add on to this briefly before we quickly go on to the next question?
Sure. I was thinking Angela was spot on in terms of the interest. That's the first thing. What could help as well is if we divide it into sections and we think in terms of like Andy said, in terms of sensory, then we can look at things like cognitive. So you can look at activities like matching, and you don't have to have a lot of expensive materials. You can have socks and just mix the socks up together and let them match the socks, and you can make it fun regardless of the age. You can also break it down to things like fine motor skills. So some drawing, some painting, some, like you said, some Play-Doh. We can think of physical skills, so therefore more gross motor skills, rolling the ball, throwing the ball, jumping, catching. So if you think about normally at school, children would naturally be doing these things. They'd be running outside with their friends, and the school would have made sure that within the daily structure of the school, each of these skills, I think that could be one way of, when you're thinking of activities, maybe across a day, you might think, oh, okay, did my child do some fine motor skills today? I wonder if we can play a game with the knife and fork, just cutting. I wonder, obviously the first thing that also comes to mind, always remember, is safety. Safety is your number one priority. So whatever you're going to choose to do, I think Nana said it earlier, remember the communication level of the child. and equally important, the cognitive level of the child. So clearly, if the child's cognitive level isn't at a certain level, there's no point making the work too hard, because if you do that, what's going to happen, and I'm sure we'll touch on this later, is that a lot of emotional and behavioral problems, because we're trying to get the child to do way too much at any one time.
Fantastic.
So,
that's very true. Yeah, because most of the children will not even want to be doing schoolwork at home. They feel home is home and school is school. So that is the challenge. Okay, thank you very much. We will still be answering some of the other questions. If we haven't answered every question as much as the way you feel, don't worry. Because as more questions come in, you might get some of the answers to your questions coming. So we have the next question. It's coming from Alison Amegache. And the question is, what therapy options are available in schools, and how does this continue when the child is at home? So what therapy options are available in school? Is Nanekia around? I think I will start off with this. Okay, I'll start off with this. Having a school myself, and also having an 18-year-old son. Most of the therapies that are available in schools is mostly speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, educational psychology, and you may have some behavior therapies like positive behavior support or ABA. So most of the therapies within the schools here in the UK would have this few number of therapies. But there's so many other therapies that individual schools could incorporate, which could be other movement and dance, music therapy, Lego therapy, other things that could be added on for the child to develop. But it all depends on the needs of the child. It all depends on the needs of the particular child with special needs or autism. So based on their needs, then the therapies that are needed will be given to them. I think one of the main therapies that are needed is speech and language therapy. And I think we've got Nanekia on the platform, how these therapies could be continued within the home environment. So Nana, are you around?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So we had the question that what therapy options are available in school, and how could parents continue this at home with their child? So how could they continue this at home?
I think you can continue.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so at the center, the therapy that is available, I would say, like developmental. So we base it on a developmental program. So the stages that the child, the milestones that the child should develop at different stages. So that is what we tend to base out on for the little children. And we work with younger children. So we look at the milestones that the child should have obtained at different levels, and then try and support the child that way. One of the early milestones that we realize is around social interaction. A lot of the non-verbals that the child should develop even before speech starts, because there's so much of adult-child interaction, play, understanding, attention and listening, other kinds of non-verbal interaction that the child should develop well before speech starts. And a lot of the children with autism miss those things. So a focus will be on those things, trying to help the child to develop those things. And then working together with the parents. So whatever we're doing, whatever targets we set, we try and set it together with the parents, and then get the parents to continue so that we will get some generalization and for the child to be able to learn a little faster. So, for example, one activity is like taking turns to do things, and taking turns is an important activity or that you need for conversation. So when we do taking turns with a child, or try to develop that, helps with sharing, helps with learning to interact with another person, then we tell the parents to do the same thing, give them homework that they can do, and encourage parents to maybe institute taking turns at home with the other siblings as well, so that if all other siblings are coming to talk to parents, then they are all taking their turns to do things, and the child is learning to pick up. And some of these things, these activities will be some of the things that we do. So following the developmental stages, that is how we normally would work in that place. And we encourage, we involve parents quite strongly.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is very true for we who have a system whereby we train parents to develop their kids in the home environment. I think for every parent, you need to learn a bit of the therapies that your kids get at school. So this would apply to most of the parents who have asked the question before. I think most of you are asking questions regarding what activities can we do at home? What systems can we do at home? You could develop a speech therapy system based on your child's reports. You could also develop an occupational therapy system, which could include things like sensory integration or things like having sensory play. You could incorporate anything like learning. So within your home environment, the best thing to do, you don't have to develop anything new, but you can put in the therapies within the everyday activities you do at home. So let's say when you are eating, you could teach your child, it's time for dinner. Okay, dinner, food is finished. So you could incorporate, this is marathon signing. You could incorporate all of this within everyday things that you do at home. Okay.
And I think,
so
sorry, can I just say that I think, I mean, I know that there are people there with older children, but I think for older children, it's a similar thing as well, that you can also involve them in the everyday routines, washing time, washing dishes, washing clothes, sweeping, ironing, doing, home activities, things that the chores that you do at home, you can involve them as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on quickly to the next question from Chrissy Addy. She says, the question, do the panel believe the government are doing their best to support families during this time in both Ghana and UK? Wow, this is a strong question. Do we believe the government is doing what they have to do both in UK and Ghana? What do you think? I think all of us know ourselves, isn't it? But what is anybody on the panel able to give an answer to this?
I think the UK are doing an amazing job for these special children and their families. I mean, in UK, they have disability on top of their list. But in Ghana, most of the people that you see on by the roadside begging for money and all that have either got some sort of special needs. And because the parents cannot look after them, they tend to go wayward. And even the few special needs schools in Ghana are so expensive for the parents to be able to take their children there. And the government is not giving them any concessions, any help, any support, nothing at all. I mean, until recently that we had Hope Setters in Tema, that is an autism school. Any child within the Tema metropolis who has got autism or special needs to go to Accra. And I think there is a lot to be done in this country. And maybe the politicians need to sit up, pay attention, and give some more help to families living with such special needs children.
I think that's very true. I will agree with that. Governments need to support and do more. The problem is that COVID-19 is a totally different situation that nobody was really expecting, and it's here. So if families have children with autism or special needs and they're having difficulties already, this current situation has made the situation worse. So I think it's mainly good for whether if you're a parent in Ghana or you are a parent in the UK, depending on what the situation, or any other part of the world, either be USA or whatever, if you are on, it's good to see what systems are in place in your country and then try parents should come together and then try and then get the government to put something in place to support parents, because it's such a very difficult time, either with some funding or providing systems whereby parents could have a break with caring for their kids.
I mean, now you have a 10-year-old in school. Can you share your view on that, whether as a parent, you are getting any help from the government, especially within this period? Nah.
Hello, Nah, are you there?
Nah,
I think we're still having difficulties with her mic, so we will come back to her. We still have her intro and the question.
But I mean, can I just say that, I mean, I think a lot of the awareness that has been done so far, slowly we have come to the attention of the authorities. So I know that, like, the First Lady was involved with one of the autism centers, and the Vice was also involved in one of the autism centers. So we have come to some notice, and I'm hoping and expecting that as the Act 715, that Disability Act, is also being reviewed right now, and the LIs are being developed, that sooner or later, I think that things might get better. But right now, it is, as I think George was talking about, it's not as good, but I think at the moment we are slowly coming to the attention of the authorities, and I'm expecting good news and better provision in the near future.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have two questions from one parent, from Tamara Bello. So I would ask the first question, and then I'll come to the second one on the screen at the moment. The first question Tamara is asking about what organization is it that helps families in the UK? So I think this comes to me. There are various organizations that help families in the UK. Within this COVID-19 period, we have set up SEM Parenting, which is a very new organization at the moment. It's a charity, and it's set up mainly to support families to develop their case within the home environment, to put a multi-therapy structure in place. So the idea was that schools were doing so much, and parents were normally taking their kids to school and not doing so much. They think school is doing everything. And it was found out that if families are able to set up a similar system within the home environment and bridge the gap between school, then the children develop at a faster rate and they're able to achieve their maximum potential. So SEM Parenting developed that. And now within the COVID period, we have started to set up a system that would help parents through our webinars to set up structures within each parent's home activity. Every child is different, and so is every family. So I think we would put the information on the screen towards the end so that families could be able to log into the website and be able to log into or email us and contact us so that you can join our webinars.
Hannah?
Yeah, Colin.
Can I also add? I mean, it's great that we have the SEN parenting group. The question seems to be that helps family in the UK. So I think it's important that we do mention organisations like the National Autistic Society, which is a huge organisation, and they have small groups as well across different cities and different towns. So there's the National Autistic Society. There are also lots of groups which are equally important, and I want to stress the importance of parents. There are parents who have set up groups, and you know, and they started off in their kitchen, they started off in community centres, and it's always good to recognise that how they are empowering the parents who attend as well. So we have different umbrella groups as well. We have Bernardo's. There's quite a few national ones.
Exactly.
I'm not quite sure the national ones in Ghana, but I know for different places as well, because we have people online from places like Barbados and the Caribbean, other parts of the Caribbean, and they have national services as well, which are meeting the needs of parents through their different CDCs, you know, the children's centres. So there were quite a few. But one thing parents do have to do is you will have to search. You know, this is something that you have to go out of your way to try and access, because they're not always at our fingertips.
Okay, thank you. That's true. Actually, we were directing parents to the Send Parenting because we have a whole list. We are going to have a whole list of all the organizations in UK and Ghana. So when you tap to the website, you would be able to get it. We have organizations like the Second Voice. We do have MENCAP, the National Autistic Society. We have Special Needs Jungle in the UK. So many of them. And then in Ghana, we do have Awawa to Autism Awareness Care and Training, Hope Setters, the Rio Paddock School. We have quite a lot of Woodford Manor, Multi-Case. So many of them are there. So we will put them on the website or put them on the GUBA Foundation site so that you can have access to them. Thank you. All right, I think there was a second question that Tamara asked. Is it possible to put that up? The second question from Tamara says, from my experience in my
this
town.
wasn't a second question.
Let's see. Okay.
She asked something else. Anyway, let's deal with
maybe we'll come back to that. Thank you, George. Okay, so we have a current question on the screen which says, from Tamara again, hello, my son is 4 years old and non-verbal. My difficulty is finding a suitable place for my son to release energy and play. We don't have a garden and can't go to the park. He loves outdoors. So what can he do? I think I've asked the question. So that is the situation. She has a 4-year-old son and he needs to release energy and they don't have a garden. And he loves outdoors. So what can a parent do within this COVID-19 lockdown?
Can I answer? Is there a particular reason why you can't go to the park? I'm in the same situation. I don't have a garden, but you can go out for the restricted hours of like the 1 hour. You can use that time to literally go to your local park anywhere and allow them to be free, because it can be so contained too much and you'll feel the strain. So it's best you get that time. It's so important, not only for you, but for your child to go out and get to release the energy. And I did it yesterday, and when he came home, he slept. So it was such a big relief just having that half an hour, 15 minutes just to go outside. Just find somewhere local, have your obviously hand sanitizers or your gloves or your masks, and go outside for that time, and then you'll feel such a pressure off. So I would say do try and go out because it will benefit you and your son.
Right.
I'm also just wondering that if there's no park immediately around, can you go for a walk? I mean, can you go for a walk? You know, I'm not sure where you're calling from, whether it's in the UK or in Ghana, but whether you can go for a walk with a child, and as you're walking with a child, pointing out things in the street, trying to have a little chat, walk up and down the road and then come back home. If there's no park immediately around and you have to travel maybe far for that. So I think that it's always possible outside to try something. Yes. So exactly. Just have a little walk on your pavement up and down the road. Maybe that might help.
Yeah. And obviously taking into consideration the social distancing, which is very important. And I believe that in a situation as well, I do understand what the parent is saying. Sometimes when it's raining badly or within this lockdown and you think I cannot go out, what activities can we do? I try to look at my son's occupational therapy report in terms of how he could sensory activities that have been recommended. So for my child, I use maybe the gym ball or sensory play or something that will engage him, either music or something that would really engage him to release that energy, jumping around, doing some exercises. So that is also very important, but every child is different. So you have to look at those activities that you can do within the home that would be
And I think
enjoyable.
in restrictive circumstances, I think some of these, like this conversation in some ways, maybe should have been a little earlier. But I'm thinking that right from the start, when the restrictions started, there should have been some kind of conversation with the child, with pictures explaining no school or no outing. So you can have a picture of you maybe going outdoors, and then you have a big red cross in the picture to let the child understand that you can't go out today, so that the child begins to get that understanding that they can't go out. And then maybe do that the following day, let the child know you can't go out. And then slowly, as it carries on, the child begins to understand that, okay, I can't go out. And then find activities, as you have talked about earlier, to do in the house. And then when it's time that you can go out, you can have another picture with a big green tick that says, today we can go out. And then you can take the child out. So the child begins to understand, the use of those pictures in that way. And you can use it other situations as well when it's a bit restricting.
Thank you. See, so there's so many things you can do. There's other exercises like yoga or different things that you could do that could also release the energy. But if you don't know how to do it, then don't try something that you are not sure. But there's so many things out there. Okay, so could we move on to the next question? I think I'm really happy parents are bringing the questions, because this is what we need. We need to come out and say what the difficulties we are facing. So we have a queer Kakraba, and her question or comment is, thank you for this brilliant opportunity, to share ideas on autism. I have a 19-year-old boy with autism. He's not eating his supper earlier than 11 p.m. When we try to convince him to eat, his mood changes. And sometimes he throws the food at you. Please, how do I manage this challenge?
That sounds like Pauline to me.
Come on then, Pauline.
Yes. Because we're focusing on COVID-19, the question is this new behavior, or is this something that he's always done? So, has he always eaten his supper around about 11 p.m.? Or is this a change in the behavior? And I think that's important for her to answer, because if this behavior is quite normal to him and he's been eating and that's been accepted, because what COVID-19 has done, I mean, we've all alluded to this, is that it's put us in a situation where we're stuck inside the house. And so we start to see behaviors that we perhaps wouldn't have seen before. And also because I don't know, but if he was going to school, he would normally have a structure, thereby the reason to go to bed makes sense. The reason to eat earlier makes sense. Many of us who are stuck at home, there are lots of jokes about what day is it, what time is it, because one day merges into the next. And so for a young man with autism who struggles with change anyway, because we know that change and transitions are difficult, is it that he's being asked to shift his eating pattern? Because if that is the case, then it isn't surprising that his mood is changing, and that one way of him expressing frustration is to throw the food, because we always look at behavior as a means of communicating, perhaps in an inappropriate way, but we are communicating a need, and the need is usually hidden. So it's trying to figure out, has that change come about? Another thing that I know, working with a lot of young people still at the moment through COVID-19, is because there is no structure, many of them are going to bed later. Many are on YouTube. As I said, 1 hour is just rolling into the next. So therefore, eating at 11 o'clock, if you're going to sleep at 5 a.m., and we have young people This is their structure. They are waking up round about 2 o'clock now in the afternoon. And unlike younger children, where you can have a conversation and you can manipulate a bit more what they do, you are dealing with young adults. And again, it depends on the cognitive level. So it's not always easy to say to a 19-year-old,
Pauline,
eat at that particular time.
Yeah. Okay, George, are you saying something?
Yeah, to Pauline, if the 19-year-old normally eats at 11 p.m., is there a problem with it?
This is it. No, absolutely not, George. And that's the point. If he normally eats at 11 p.m. and if the parents don't find it and they haven't found it in the past to be a problem, so therefore that behavior has become set, then it wouldn't be a problem. Now, if it's a problem for the parents, the question is, what's happened? What's changed for them? It's not a criticism. It's something must have happened. Because, you know, we have a saying, pick your battles. And if that battle means that he's going to become upset and angry and throw food at you, and potentially that could even escalate further, so it becomes physical, it's a good question then, George. Is it worth it? Is it worth thinking that pattern? Could he just eat that bowl of cereal?
Exactly.
Okay, so I think it's interesting. Mind you, this is to all the audience. We may not be able to answer every question in detail now. So some of you might have to signpost later, and then we'll be able to go in depth to whatever is causing these behaviors. So just as Pauline said, is it due to COVID-19? If it's not due to COVID-19, any behavior normally takes time. It takes time to really improve and change to other worthwhile behaviors. You can't just switch it off like that. So, yeah, thank you very much for your question and your answers.
And I've been also wondering whether there's been siblings in the house, what times the siblings eat, and you know whether there's any way the parents can reorganize slowly and try to get the siblings, everyone, to be eating around the same time and see whether it helps. But I mean, as Pauline said, if this is a set pattern, then it's a harder job trying to change it now.
Yeah. But anyway, we don't want any parents to give up. I believe it's always possible to do things. So once we've started a journey, like I said, it takes time. With any behavior, it definitely takes some time. Even if you have to slowly change the time by 10 minutes, 15 minutes, slowly bringing it forward and giving rewards, there is a possibility. But we have to talk about most of these things in detail later. Thank you.
Now, can you hear us now? Nah? Can you hear us?
I think she can hear us, but the problem is
I can hear you.
You can hear us.
Hello.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So now,
finally, yeah.
Good.
Now, you, for example, you know how your boy sometimes struggles to eat, maybe late in the night, that sort of thing. And when he's asking for food and he doesn't get it at the right time, he throws tantrums and all that.
Tantrums. Yeah.
How do you manage it?
Well, it's been difficult. Yeah. I've stayed with him for almost 10 years now, so I know how to go about it. You know, sometimes I just leave him to do his own thing, and then when he gets fed up, he stops. Sometimes too, I have to, put some kind of fear into him, like, using a cane, because I know he's scared of cane. So immediately he sees I'm holding a cane, he'll stop whatever that he's doing.
Right. Okay. I think in some cases it's like
not
that.
Not to say she beat him though, but it was just a fear.
Yeah, maybe to scare him. Fine. We understand.
No, I don't. No, just to scare him. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Of course,
So basically, that's what I do to him. Yeah.
Okay. Well done. So I think now we missed your intro. at the start. We just needed a bit of information about you and your child. So just in 2 minutes or a minute, if you could tell us.
Right. My name is Pearl Ade. I'm 42 years old. And then I work with her as an executive assistant. Then my son is Kwesiche Ade. He's 10 years old. And then he was diagnosed with autism at 2.5 years old.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you please? Yeah, he was diagnosed. My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah.
Fantastic. So he was diagnosed at 2.5 and he's 10 years now. So now has about over 7 or 8 years experience with special needs. So thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we'll go back to the question.
My pleasure.
We need more
too.
questions coming in. I think it's very interesting. We have the next question from Claudia Andrea. And her question is, how do you keep your children from being restless, especially with those in much smaller houses and spaces? Thank you, Claudia. So this is a question for parents who are in flats or living in much smaller spaces with an autism and special needs child. How do you keep your children from being restless, being confined in a small space?
Can I answer? I think it was touched upon earlier about having a visual timetable to prepare them for like to do an activity one after the other. So again, you could simple things, and I agree with sorry, the name. I agree where you can include daily life routines. So like again, washing up the dishes, or even if they're not doing it properly, but you're including them in the activity. So you're building up life skills with them. Those things, it might be brand new to them, but also having that visual timetable will allow them to do that. Particularly my son doesn't really use it, but he uses it at school, but he's able to understand what I'm saying. So I would rather just communicate with him using words to say, okay, we're going to do this next, or do this with me, or help me with this. And that before you know it, the day and the time is running to an end. So that helps a lot. So I'll say that will lessen the stress, and it will give the child something excited to be like, oh, I'm going to do this next, just to ease the transition. So yeah, that's just my advice.
That's true, isn't it? And I think it's something that we have tried as well as a parent, to do a timetable, a structure, and then incorporate activities that your child likes. So it shouldn't be just any activity at all, that things that they would like and will engage them. I have to be truthful that it's really difficult, because as parents, you have to cook, you have to clean, you've got other children. You can't have the whole time to spend one-to-one with your special needs child. So it is really challenging, but it's very important, honestly, to have some form of structure. So thank you very much. Have some form of structure, and then plan what your child could be doing, even if it's half an hour, have a break, come back again. So I think that is very important. It will really help. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Thank you. There's more questions coming in. I'm very happy. Bring in your questions. Keep bringing it in. Let's try and see how much we can cover within the short time. So I have the next question from Martha Dazi. Her question is, please, what are some of interactive activities to engage a child with autism during Zoom online lessons? Okay, that's fantastic. So from Martha, she says, what are some of the interactive activities that could be used to engage a child during Zoom online lessons? I think this goes to Angie with the educational background. During Zoom activities, what kind of activities can a child do?
If she meant like maybe the child is having an online class, maybe there's a person on the receiving end that is doing an activity. But I will say there's quite a bit to do. I guess it's a bit tricky because I don't know. I haven't been on the app using it to teach my child. So obviously Zoom is like trying to do face-to-face activities. I would say maybe if it's like the mirroring effect where you're copying what they're doing, or you're leading a song, or the person's leading a song or an activity and it's trying to engage a child. I think it's a very tricky question. I don't know how to answer it per se.
Can I
Can I add, because I know an organization, I think I'm trying to remember the name of the organization, Eusitos group, that's doing something online with Zoom, and it's Angie, I think you did make mention of some of what they do. So it's like demonstration sessions. So the person on the other end will be doing lots of demonstrations, and depending on the needs of that child and the targets that's been set for that child, they will be demonstrating what they expect the parents to be doing at the other end. And so it's like in real time, and they'll be watching what they are doing and practicing it at the same time, so that the instructor is watching what the parent is doing with the child at the other end, and then they are following and doing what they ask them to do. So the activities will depend on the needs of the child and the targets that's been set for the child. And there are certain situations where a child needs to sit on the parent's lap, and then that's what, they will demonstrate, that an adult will sit on a child at the lap, and then they will demonstrate for the parent to be able to do what they have to do. So I think in that sense, depending on what the child needs, you would have planned the targets for that, and you are demonstrating it on Zoom for the parents to watch and to be able to practice as well.
Thank you.
Can I add something, please?
Yeah, Pauline.
Can I say that there has to be an acknowledgement, and I don't even know if we've acknowledged it here in the UK, that the whole online interactive system is abnormal for children. It isn't normal for children to sit in front of a TV and watch lessons. So there has to be an acknowledgement that what we're asking children in general to do across the world is quite difficult and challenging for them when they're used to a live person standing in front of them. Now, when you then have a child with autism on top, and possibly another condition such as attention deficit, which coexist, asking a child to sit within the confines of a house and to interact and connect with somebody on the screen, just like how we're doing now, just how we're looking at people, it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And I think if parents were less hard on themselves, because there were a lot of parents thinking, I can't get my child to sit, I can't get my child to do this, I'm going to get into trouble, what am I going to do? I think we have to be kind to ourselves as parents and to think, you know what, this isn't easy. Yeah. This isn't easy, and whatever you're doing the best that you possibly can. And I know some parents are getting children so worked up, and because you have to do this, you have to get this in. I think as long as we can keep humor, it's so important. Make it fun. Have a laugh with your child, and when it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go, acknowledge it. You know what? The world is not going to come to an end if our children do not finish a set amount of work when lockdown is lifted. What is more important is that they are healthy emotionally and they feel loved and cared for. This is already a challenging situation. Having autism puts another layer on top. And I would just like to get that across, because I hear parents all the time contacting me, and they're stressed because they don't know how to get their child to do this or to do that. You know what? You're doing the best you can.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true, Pauline. I think is very important, because for every parent, anyone to be able to help your child, you have to be in a better place, mentally, emotionally, and physically. So, or health-wise. So I think amid all these difficulties, even if you have half an hour or 10 minutes or whatever time, parents need to have me time and look after themselves. And we're not here to say you have to do so much, because it's a difficult a very challenging situation already. Okay, so we have barely less than half an hour to go. We really want to have more questions in. So we'll try and go through more questions as quickly and have very short answers as much as we can. And if any questions are not asked or we are able to get some questions in, please don't feel very bad. We would be able to signpost you or lead you to other organizations after this who can help. So let's go straight to the next question from Nana Kweku Bempa. The question is, please, how do you manage an ASD child who exhibits behaviors like tearing papers, polythenes, books, etc., tearing them apart? How do you manage a child who exhibits such behaviors?
Angie, I can see your lips moving.
I think that's the perfect activity to give them. You find things that are not important. So obviously, don't use your own personal letters, but you get paper, newspapers, and give that activity for them. And that, I think there's a satisfaction that they're getting out of that activity. So use that and let your child play with those things. That's just what they like to do. So you encourage that behavior. So obviously, instead of using personal things, use things that they are able to do, and that will, satisfies that type of play for them. So it's just a perfect activity. That's what they like to do. So you should do that in a playful manner.
Okay, so I believe that I think as a parent, most parents would think, why should I encourage my child to be ripping papers and destroying things? I think this is where it comes to the understanding of what autism or special needs is. Sometimes our children need to release the stress, and they could do that through sensory play, playing with water, ripping papers, or something like that. So you can just get some old newspapers, which I used to do, and then give them some time that they could sit in the corner and rip it and get that frustration out. And then when it's finished, it's time to clean up and pack it up. See, so bit by bit, they're finding a way, they're communicating, finding a way to release the stress. So don't feel bad if you think maybe they are
and you can include language in there. So you can have a box, and then you can have the papers you are ripping up. When you rip up, it's in the box. So every time you rip up, you put in the box. Every time you rip up, in the box. And that is also developing and improving the child's language. So you put it all in the box, and when you finish, you can put it away. If they don't want it in the box, then it is on the floor or on the ground. So find a way to incorporate language as much as you can. And that also helps to take the child's mind a little bit off the activity and the rigidity of, just tearing the papers. So they learn on the floor or in the box or on something. So you can include language in there and extend the child's play for them.
Okay, so that's fantastic. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next question quickly from Lena Dawson Amwa. And she says, I'm a mother of 3, a 4-month-old, a 1.5-year-old, and a 7-year-old who has ASD. I'm finding it extremely difficult to give him the attention that he needs. What can I do to best manage our situation, time, so that I can do activities with him during COVID-19? So definitely, Lena, this is a difficult. You have a baby, you have a 1.5-year-old and a 7-year-old. How could a mother juggle all these 3 within this COVID-19 lockdown?
That's a very tough one. Because the 1.5-year-old will not even understand the fact that you are giving the 4-month-old baby attention. How much more an autistic 7-year-old? So this sounds like a polling question anyway, because it's too heavy for me.
Well, I was just thinking that as a mother of 5, with 2 years between 4 and then a 5-year gap with the last one, I was thinking that in general, most mothers are going to say, or most parents are going to say, that splitting your time between your children so that each of them feel that they have your undivided attention is something that all parents face. So let's normalize that. Then it depends on, again, the cognitive level and the development level of the 7-year-old. So, for example, if it's a 7-year-old who is able to communicate and he understands that things like turn taking, it could even be simple, you know, waiting. Angela spoke a while ago about, and so did Hannah, about the use of timetables. Nana's mentioned it too. Each of them have talked about how important visual timetables are in order to set for a child, particularly with autism, so that they can see when they're going to do certain activities. And it's the same if you know that he likes baking. He might not be able to do it in the morning, but if you have another a partner, for example, maybe it's something that he could look forward to in the evening. And as long as it's there up on his visual timetable, he can see that it's coming, and he can be directed back, and he can see that that's his time. There are activities that you could do together, even with, you know, the 4-month-old, you could be holding the little one, just simple games like rolling a ball. You could have music, you could roll the ball to the 1.5-year-old. They can catch a ball and they can roll the ball back. Like Nana was saying, they can play games together, like you've got some, I don't know, some balls or something, or some paper that you screwed up, and then you're going in, and then out. So it's exactly the same thing that the panel members have said earlier, but it's just that you're trying to get them to do it together. A ball, up, roll, so that there's an activity that is shared, because the reality is that you can't always have the time to spend solely with the child who is on the spectrum. And in life, he has to learn that life's not like that anyway. He has to wait his turn. And that's why the visual timetables are brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we could put in those strategies together. We'll go straight to the next question from Horatio Alexandra Cole.
Hello, Horatio.
Horatio, okay, sorry.
It's good to see you.
So the question comes that Autistic Society in Sierra Leone is not an easy thing at all, because our society needs to know more about it. Yes, I do agree with you. It's true. In Africa and other countries, autism is something that is not well understood, or is not well known, because you don't see the disability and there's not much awareness. So I do agree with you, but I'll throw it to the panel. Again, it says Autistic Society in Sierra Leone is not easy at all, because our society needs to know more about it. What do you think?
I think Nana Kuya mentioned that in Ghana, the message is gone through to the powers that be, and they are beginning to pay attention to situations like this. So hopefully, as Ghana takes the lead, other African countries will also follow them, like we did with the independence. So hopefully, we'll also copy the good thing that we are doing in Ghana.
And I think I'd like to add that you need to start awareness programs. You just need to start awareness programs. Take advantage of the Autism Awareness Months and Awareness Days, and have programs. Make sure the media gets to know about what you're talking about, and then the public gets to know what you're talking about. And then have groups, parent groups, and start something that will begin to stir up the public a little bit. So you need to do a bit of awareness, I think.
Okay, that's true. So that's good. So parents in Sierra Leone and other, we could put yourselves together, come together. When you have a wider audience making noise, I think you get the impact you want.
Can I just thank Horatio for coming on, and just add that they are a group of teachers who are doing a lot of good work in Sierra Leone, and I think this is why a forum like this is important, so that we make links and we share good practice. So it's great that, you know, he's taking the time to come on board with the rest of the team. So thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think looking at our time, we have about 15 minutes to go. So we have about 10 more minutes to take more questions as much as come in. And then we'll give our panel a minute or two to quickly sum up what we think they have to say to the audience. So we'll quickly go on the next question from Tamara Bello. She says, from my experience in my town, due to financial cuts and being general about autism, I don't think they do enough. After my son's diagnosis, I was left to seek help on my own until I complained. You see, Tamara, that is really very true. I have to speak the truth as a parent, and also having a parent group. Most parents always have to fight and fight and fight for services for their children. It's so sad that after all the stresses you are going through, we have to continue fighting. But I think we need to do something. We need to do it for our kids. So we need to make sure that, first of all, parents, we understand what our children's diagnoses are, what kind of support that they need. Once you have a good understanding, then you know which organizations you are able to go to. Are you able to get support with legal aid or with other charities that have set up organizations where you can go and get the help to be able to get more information and know how to go the right channel? Okay, because there is a way that parents have to fight. You need to fight the right way. If not, it gets so stressed, and most parents have got so frustrated and depressed about it, and we don't want that. So together we'll be able to fight and then get what we need for our kids. Okay, we can go to the next question from Ola Rawlings. How do you suggest the best way to explain the current pandemic and lockdown to a child? Lanekia, I think this communication. How can you explain this to a child?
I think that, you know, so we've talked about it a little bit. I'm thinking right from the beginning, if you you have pictures, it's got to be pictures. And I don't know whether it relates to going out. I don't know how your timetable was before the lockdown, but now you will have to communicate to the child, we can't go to school, or we can't go to the shops, or we can't go to any of these places. And one of the best ways that I have found that, you know, to be able to communicate, we can't do something to children, is to have a picture of it and then have the cross in it. And you just have to be firm and stay with that information. So you have those pictures handy. You have a picture which says school, and then you have your clear cross, and you can't go out. And you have a picture that says going out. I don't know if you normally go to the park, you have a clear cross and you can't go out. And initially, if it's a little child or a younger one, they may not immediately understand, and they may throw tantrums and get upset. But it is, you don't give up. You keep using that same strategy and same picture each time the child says, I want to go here, I want to go out. You do that. But then in its place, you need to develop little other activities. Okay, you have to develop other activities that the child can take part in. And that is why right from the beginning, you need that visual timetable. And I know a lot of parents have already gone through this, because the lockdown, many parents have already experienced the lockdown, and they've muddled through and done the best they can. But if you have a visual timetable, and that visual timetable at the top, it says no outing, one of the pictures, and then the next thing, you have something that is going to replace that. So you're going to have something to do, and then after that you have something to do, and after that you have something to do. So it makes it a little easier for the child to be able to contain it, rather than we are not going out and then there's nothing at all. Then that's going to be very difficult. But you need the pictures to be able to explain it to the child. You really do need the pictures.
Yeah, and I think just quickly, those people who don't understand what visual timetable is that all of us have a diary. You have a diary for the day with activities. A visual timetable is having a diary in pictures of activities of what you are doing this morning, or maybe in the next 1 hour. So you just have it in pictures. You can cut pictures, or you can draw and stick it down and say, this is the activities that my child, this is what you are going to do. Okay, so with
Hannah, can we take it one level higher? Because at the moment we're talking about children who are mainly non-verbal, but there may be people on this on listening today who have children who are high functioning. They have high functioning autism, or the ones at the top end of the spectrum, who are incredibly rigid in their thinking and their thought process, and so they have their own idea. They are super intelligent.
Yeah.
And they know more than parents know in terms of what's going on in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of those children. I work with a lot of them. I know who they are and what their thinking is. And they are the ones who keep telling the parents everything that's happened, the percentages, everything, you name it, and why they can go outside. And the clash that is going on, because they're bigger. Remember as well, like the 19-year-old, it's not that you can, manage a 19-year-old man, because we're talking about men and women. And so it's important for us to remember as well that there were those children who it's very difficult to explain to them when they are very fixed in their minds as to what this condition is. And they still refuse to accept that they cannot get out. They cannot go to the places that they want to go to. They cannot continue their activities. It's very, very challenging. But
that's very true.
One thing we always say, regardless of the conversation that you're having, and it's less is more. Less is more. Whatever you're going to be describing, whatever you're going to be saying, you try your best to keep it as succinct. And whereas you might not be using pictures, you can use bullet points. And you become almost like a parrot. So you're not using visuals because the child is not using visual timetable, but you have got your bullet points, and you might have them up somewhere in the house, and they may even become a bit like a house wall almost. So it's just kind of like,
sorry, Pauline, I have to cut everybody here a bit because we're running out of time, but thank you very much. So we do have children who are higher functioning, or adults who are higher functioning. We need to work on them as well.
Diana, I saw you. Thank you for joining. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
And can I just give something to just a short form, KISS, KISS. Keep it short and simple. That's what she was talking about, Pauline.
That's right.
That's true. Fantastic.
So if parents remember KISS, keep it short and simple.
That's nice.
Right. Keep it short and simple. Okay. Sorry, George.
Parents on this platform, if you have a special, now that we have experts here as well, if you have a special situation at home that you want to bring it up for the expert to advise on, we will be happy to look at that as well. I mean, now I don't know, or Angie or myself, if there is a particular situation that you want the experts to advise on, maybe this is our opportunity to also put in our request.
Okay, so that's true. Fanta, we've got them here. We've got anytime the questions and your problems could be put onto the team here. I think you have to go through the GUBA Foundation or the Send Parenting or other systems. I want to pick up a point that Diana Cote mentioned. She came on the system that you can't have a lot of information on the National Autistic Society website and other SEN websites if you need support with visual timetables. Interest somebody mentioned before, so you can pick up that information. And quickly, this question from Maxine Grief say it is important to remember for parents to remember their own self-care. Any suggestions from the panel? And I think I'll give just 30 seconds for any suggestion for this to be said. For me, I think you need a time to sit down and have a nice drink, nice cool music when the kids are sleeping, and have a me time without anybody. So you need that, depending on some parents need to go for a walk, some parents need to have a nice meal, or just imagine yourself in a sauna. So you need that time for yourself. So is there anything anyone would like to say quickly before we try to bring the curtains down? I'll take a very last question, and then that would be the end. Is there anything that parents can do to have a me time in 30 seconds?
Well, that was going to be my closing comments about
the importance for parents having a me time and having a special time to themselves. And I think, as you have said, Hannah, it depends on what the parents sees at the me time, but it is crucial. It is so important that the parents work in a me time for themselves. As they are working visual timetables, I think in the visual timetable, you should have mommy special time. And that means that that means that this time mommy is not available and mommy is going to her room and mommy is going to have a quiet time, or mommy is going out, or mommy is going to watch something. But that special time should be part of that child's visual timetable, so they know this time belongs to mommy and I get to do something else whilst mommy goes to do something. So it's extremely important, because the parents need to be sane, healthy, safe, so that you carry on with the wonderful work that you're doing for the child.
Fantastic. Right. It's true. We need to recharge to be able to look after our children. And I have to say that I think I take this as a quick sum up of everything that we have said here. It's almost 5 minutes to time. So I think parents, you are doing very well. We are doing fantastic within this time. And most of all the strategies that we have said and discussed together, it will not fit for everyone. So you have to create, design. This is a time for creativity, whereby we create and get to know our children more, see what they like. No child would like to learn when they are not happy. You understand? Or they'll bring up, so you must do things that will make your children happy and engage them. And I think through that, we'll support each other and get through this together. So just a quick 30 seconds, please, from all the panel. What do you have to say to finish up? 30 seconds. Okay. Sorry, I start with George.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's been really, really informative, and we need more of this to help parents like us and those who haven't got the opportunity to be listening to this. Those of us who heard it, please preach it. And if you need help, you can always come to the GUBA Foundation and we will signpost you to the right areas. Thank you very much, Hannah, and the rest of the team.
Okay, Pauline.
Oh, just that it's been fantastic. It's such a privilege to be on a panel like this, and I wish I could do more. So anyone who wants to contact me, just contact me via Hannah in the SEN parenting group. Happy to be of service.
Fantastic. Nanekia.
I think I also would like to commend all parents so far, because COVID-19 has brought a lot of restrictions, which kind of opposes exactly, the behave children with autism. So children with autism are rigid, and all the difficulties that they go through, and yet parents have been able to go through it till now. I really want to say a big well done to parents, and to also insist and maybe reinforce the need for them to have time for themselves and to make sure that they care for themselves. Having a child with a disability or having a child with autism does not mean that you withdraw from all other activities, from other social activities. It is difficult. I know it is not an easy thing, but please stay sane and make sure that you are involved and you are taking time off and looking after yourself well.
Fantastic. Angela,
thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think this was very amazing. I love this. It's good to get and to hear from other people different struggles and different questions that are relatable. I will say this time is perfect for you to learn about your child even more, and like arrange activities around that. I'm learning so much of my son just in the last few weeks that I thought, oh my gosh, how did you do this? I didn't know. So it's a perfect time for you to engage and really connect with them. So do that as well. And
thank you.
Take care
and
of
then we come. Thank you so much. Finally, to Pearl. Now, do you have anything quickly to say? Hello, Pearl. Hello, now. Do you have anything to say quickly? Just one or few seconds. Okay, I think it's just the network is quite bad. Okay, so I think we have more questions coming in from Victor Martin, a question from Priscilla about the school in the UK. And then the Sierra Leone team also asking about how we can support them. I think there's so many questions that we can answer all of them. It's still coming and many people saying thank you, Bumi saying thank you. All of them are really fantastic. I think it's good for parents who need more support to develop structures at home to go to our website, www.senparenting.org. And when you go there, we are organizing a lot of webinars to be able to help families. And we also link families to other organizations like the NAS, other organizations like a Second Voice, other organizations that are in the UK, which can link across all other countries in the world, not only the UK. So on behalf of all my panel team, and on behalf of the GUBA Enterprise and GUBA Foundation, Denta Amwateng and her team, would like to thank all of you for joining us for this webinar. I hope we'll be able to organize more of this in the future and bring in more panel members, therapists that could help you. So thank you so much, parents. Please keep on doing the good job and don't give up, okay? We will definitely come out of this. Stay home and keep safe. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.